Pod.
I forgot I ate beets earlier, so when I went to the bathroom a second ago, I thought I was dying. And it got me thinking about how short a memory NBA media has today and how poorly that translates to a season with so much parity and so much reshuffling on a week by week basis in the standings. Welcome back to the Pod. Max, how are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to purge myself of the takes that I've been sitting on for the last few weeks.
Yep. I've basically just been living in a cave in school, and Max has once every couple weeks said, "When's it happening?" And so tonight is the night. We're just gonna start rapid firing some things, and I'll let you start on your list since I know how much this means to you.
So the first one is kind of something that's been shuffling in my head for the last couple weeks. And the way that I've come up with saying it is teams that are punting on the regular season are punting on the championship. So basically what that means, a lot of teams, Warriors, probably a lot worse off in the regular season than many expected. They're sitting at 500. Clippers, a lot further down in the standings. In the East, you have the Heat who are further down. The Nets could start to slide with KD out. There's a lot of teams that it seems like aren't taking the regular season very seriously, which has been a trend in the NBA over the last 10 years and maybe part of a problem as to why people don't seem to care that much about the NBA during the regular season, just because the NBA has allowed teams to devalue it. But this year, I think more than ever, with how much parity there is and how many just superstars there are, you need a top seed to get to the finals. And if you're coming in one of these brackets in the 5 or 6 seed, you're just probably not going to make it even to the conference finals or to the finals. I don't know if you disagree with that, but I think like if the Warriors and Clippers, if they mess around and find themselves in the 6 seed or even the 5 seed, they're probably not making it past the second round.
I think the Warriors are an exception. There were definitely moments last season where I did not think they had a chance to look like far and away the best team by the last round of the playoffs. And somehow they pulled it together in time. So I think their infrastructure is unique, but I agree with you about the other teams. I know that the Clippers aren't thinking about it that way because if I were a Clippers fan and like the Blazers came with like Anthony Simons for Kawhi, just take a flyer on Kawhi's health to maximize Dame's championship window. Like if I were the Clippers, I'd say fuck that. I want to find out like how good Kawhi still is, which is sounds like also kind of a torture chamber if you're a Clippers fan because it feels like Kawhi just gives you barely enough to make you think like there's still a reason to be building with this core.
Yeah, and we've seen it before with championship teams that kind of sludge through the rest, like the next season, and people still pick them to make the finals. Like I think of the Lakers back in 2021, where they kind of sludged through the regular season. They had injuries. They came into the playoffs as a 7 seed. I still picked them to beat Phoenix in the first round. A lot of people did, and yeah, Anthony Davis got hurt, but that just shows you when you're coming from such a low seed, your margin for error is going to be tiny. If you're the 1 seed, you can afford for one of your stars to get hurt in a playoff series and you might still advance to the next round. But if you're coming from the 7 or 8, you're going to have to beat 3 really good teams just to get to the finals. And when you get there, you're going to play another one. Like if you're in the West and you're coming from even the 5 spot, you're probably going to have to go through something like, a Warriors team or a Clippers team, and then a very deep Pelicans or Grizzlies team and Jokic, just to get to the finals, to have a chance to play Giannis or Tatum or the Celtics, whoever it's going to be. But just your margin for error gets so small with that. And in the East, same deal. Like one of these top 5 teams in the East isn't even going to make it out of the first round, which is crazy. Like seeding is going to be ridiculously important this year.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I can in my right mind, if the standings stay about what they are now, like I can't pick the Kings over the Clippers in a playoff series. I just can't do it.
There's gonna be a lot of jockeying to play the Kings in the first round of the playoffs. I'm predicting that right now.
I'm still betting on Kawhi against a less experienced team, and I don't think it's the Clippers punting on the regular season. I think Kawhi is a unique human being, and we actually just have no idea. Is he is this rest required? Is this Kawhi punting on his regular season? Because all the reports have been that Ty Lue wants the players on his roster available so that they can figure out who they are before the games really matter.
Yeah, it's unclear with Kawhi. He's got some sort of degenerative knee, but It seems like after a game a couple weeks ago, he was saying he wanted the opportunity to like go out there and play more. Like he made some rumblings about that. I
Mhm.
don't, which doesn't really square with it seems like everything from his camp, as they say, has been about like, managing his load and his usage and all this stuff. So I just know by the time we get to the playoffs, I'm going to end up picking someone who's in the top 3 seeds in both conferences to make the finals. And I think specifically the Warriors, and I think they still can. They're only 4 games out of the 3 seed. New Orleans hasn't had a healthy team basically all year, but I think they should really do what they can to at least get up to that 4 seed.
Yeah. I'm with you generally. I just also still feel scared to say that, like, we know what this Clippers regular season is, what it is, because we're not even quite at that. I guess we're just past the halfway mark, and the Kings are what, 3.5 games or ahead of the Clippers.
Something like
The
that.
Kings are 3 games ahead of the Clippers, and they're 4.5 games 3.5 games ahead of the Timberwolves. And like for the Timberwolves, it's been a complete disaster season. And for the Kings, it's like, oh, the whole franchise has turned around. The
Right.
beam, the culture, we forgot they're an amazing fan base. And I just know that, like Anthony Edwards gets hot for a couple weeks and suddenly the Kings and Wolves have the same record. Everyone is jockeying so closely right now. I
Yeah.
just but I totally agree with you. Like um last year, the Warriors started winning and started looking dominant again well before the playoffs started.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they turned the light on, game one, round one. So
Right.
the Clippers have given us no reason to believe that they're gonna figure out an identity in time for the important games.
Yeah. All right. Give me one of yours because that was more of a big picture one. But do you have another one?
Well, yeah, mine was less big picture, more thinking about like the best budget discoveries in the NBA right now. Because Lauri Markkanen has been such a revelation,
Yeah.
and I've kind of been looking around the league for a little while now, thinking like, okay, Lauri Markkanen's a legit all-star. This isn't like, a Halliburton situation where like it was clear he was really good and then he's better than we thought he was. Like Lauri Markkanen has blown away every prediction based on the guy he was his first couple of years in the league. And I'm looking around wondering who can be the next Lauri Markkanen.
Mm.
There are kind of hints of the like Victor Oladipo when he got to Indiana, got a chance to run a bad team and made it a decent team and proved that he was an all NBA caliber guy with given the freedom. And one name came to mind, and I don't think it's that great a call because he was a pretty high draft pick, and it's only been a year or two of slight disappointment. But Jalen Suggs is a guy that if I were the Blazers, for instance, my team, I would be overpaying for.
Yeah.
I'd like unload a lot of assets to get him, because we've already seen he's a great defender, and
Elite.
he really and he strikes me as a guy who has all the intangibles, and I still think he has a lot of offensive talent. And he hasn't shot the ball that well in his first couple of years. He's had the injury bug, but none of the injuries seem like they're long term super scary. So he's a name that came to mind. I don't know if there's anyone you've been thinking about, like, oh, I would love the Knicks to maybe give away one more first round pick than people think would be necessary to get this guy who could be an all-star in a couple of years.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, a guy not who's going to be an all-star, but someone who I've been clamoring for every team that needs a backup center to trade for is Naz Reid in Minnesota. Just because, I mean, they have 2 starting centers now, and that's a whole mess. But whenever he comes into the game, he can hit threes. He can play defense decently well. He plays with great energy. When I saw the Timberwolves play in person last year, and he was the guy on the team who was him and Anthony Edwards were basically trying to drag them back into the game against the Warriors. So he's one that comes to mind. Another one who's kind of, I mean, you talk about the Knicks, Jalen Brunson is having a similar sort of leap to Lauri Markkanen, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit more expected, but I think even has far exceeded the rosiest expectations of how he would look in New York. He's completely turned around his game or upgraded his game.
And I guess it doesn't even need to be a young guy. It can just be generally distressed asset. Like Jeremy Grant has paid dividends for the Blazers.
Yeah.
Like we liked him when he was a young guy with tools on the Sixers. Then we really liked him when he was kind of in the perfect role in Denver. And then we didn't like him so much when he was just scoring a lot of points for a really bad team in Detroit. And then the Blazers kind of they got him at a nice point in his trajectory. And speaking of the Pistons, I think Sadiq Bey could be a guy who could pop up for someone scoring 24. I don't know if they would be, if he's a good team, a bad team, good stats guy.
Yeah.
But there's so much scoring talent right now that it's also hard to sift through. Like, okay, like a lot of guys can get 20, but who's getting a really crucial 20 to my team's chances of winning?
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. And then there's some guys who have just like been in losing situations their whole careers, like Towns, for instance. I don't know what he would look like if he was in a winning situation. I'm not someone who's really a big believer just because I think his defense is so debilitating. And it just, we saw in the playoffs last year, he'll go through these spurts where he'll commit 3 just absolutely mind-boggling fouls in a row and have to get subbed out of the game in the first quarter. But he's another one. I mean, I could see if he goes to the right situation, he's so skilled offensively that we could be like, man, he really was better than we thought he was this whole time.
I think Okongwu was another name that came to mind. He has kind of some like baby Bam to him, at least defensively. He's he's incredibly switchable. He's a very tenacious rebounder, and he's like really come on the last couple weeks for Atlanta. He's been starting and he blocks a ton of shots. He's 6'9", but he's super long, so he's sort of like a Rob Williams type body. Like he can anchor your defense for sure.
John Collins could be another one.
Yeah. And John Collins, another guy who like the ball doesn't stick in his hands, probably because they had no choice but to learn how to play with Trae Young. Yeah, Okongwu, he's a guy who's like his stock has been steadily rising, but I wonder if like sort of like Halliburton when he was in Sacramento and his stock was pretty high, like is it high enough? Like should somebody do what is ostensibly an overpay to get a guy like Okongwu and say like, okay, like if the Blazers gave up multiple first round picks and Nurk to get like 2 first and Nurk to get Okongwu and said like, we just want him to be our franchise center. We think it's going to be a huge bargain. We're going to get a couple of years of his rookie extension and it'll be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's less of a take and more just like who are the next surprise all-stars that maybe teams could get ahead of, the teams that don't have, a real chance at Wemby and Scoot, which are the vast majority of the league. Right.
All right. My next one is Milwaukee needs their 2023 version of PJ Tucker. Now, Joe Ingles has been, I think, pretty good for them in the minutes that I've seen since he's returned from his injury. He gives them an element they just haven't had before in terms of quick decisions and passing, someone who will actually throw the lob to Giannis on some of his rolls. I mean, Giannis should be one of the best lob threats in the league, and it seems like people never throw him any lobs, although he does have the ball in his hands a lot of the time.
Unless it's ill-advised to win a game.
Yes.
On a fast break. Yeah.
Exactly. But I just think the East is the strongest it has been in years. And to win the finals, you're going to have to go through, either the Cavs or the Sixers, and then the Nets, who I don't totally buy as a legit finals contender. That's kind of another one of my takes. And Boston, who's even better than last year. And I think going against Boston, Lopez has been awesome this year. That's an element they didn't really have in the playoffs last year. He was kind of a shell of himself. So maybe they can get by with like a Drew, Middleton, who, by the way, would really love to see Middleton play at all this year. Drew, Middleton, Giannis, Ingles, Lopez is kind of a weird lineup. I'd like for them to have someone else in there who's a little bit of a cleaner fit, but also I think they need the flexibility to be able to play Giannis at the 5, particularly if Boston goes to Horford at the 5. Just having that ability to play different styles is really important. And without someone like PJ Tucker, who is able to slide up positions defending, is able to make up for sort of a lack of size just through pure strength and grit. So, I mean, Jay Crowder is the obvious name there. I think an Ingles, Crowder, Holiday, Middleton, Giannis lineup sounds pretty good. But I think as currently constituted, if the playoffs started today, I probably wouldn't pick them to win the title, as much as it pains me. Just because Boston's gotten better, and I honestly haven't really liked a lot of what I've seen from Milwaukee this year, even though they're coasting along.
Yeah. Imagine if Milwaukee had sort of like a connecting guard wing, maybe Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I like when you were talking about the things that Ingles has brought to them recently.
Mhm.
I was thinking, like, I was still in my head thinking, who's the next Lauri Markkanen? Now everyone knows how good Jalen Williams is now because
especially everyone who's listened to this podcast.
Yeah, because and he's leading the league in dunks. Max shared that tweet with me for guards. And he's another guy. Should what we people would call the Blazers crazy if they came out and traded like Anthony and a first round pick for Jalen Williams, and somehow got there with if you could somehow get there with the salary. But Jalen Williams has some of the connecting skills that Joe Ingles has brought to the Bucks, and the question is just like, can they figure out the offense, because their defense at the rim has been pretty sick this year.
Yeah, the Knicks have their defense and their 3-point defense as well. And the Knicks have done well for me this year, but I'll never forgive them for trading the 12th overall pick for 3 fake firsts instead of just taking Jalen Williams. But in my draft guide, my floor comp for Jalen Williams was actually Joe Ingles. Because honestly, when I was watching him in college, I didn't really see the athleticism jump off the screen that much. It was more sort of guile and
I'm mad at you about that. I mean, he's smooth. He's smooth. He's brought way more power as a pro than I thought. I think he also put on a lot of muscle before the season started.
Yeah, and he looks like he's in better shape too. I don't know if I saw him dunk in his.
He did, dude. His Santa Clara bench would stand up anytime he drove. But yeah, he's
I had my process. I only watched 3 full games of every player, and I watched 2 of his were against Gonzaga, where I came away really impressed with his game, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities to throw down.
An underrated indicator of being a guy that a lot of players in the league would love to play with is if on CBS Sports Fantasy you're eligible at several different positions, because their algorithm just can't quite figure out what position you play because you're doing all sorts of things for your team. And I've just noticed Jalen Williams is eligible at power forward, small forward, shooting guard, and point guard on CBS. Another guy, Kevin Huerter, eligible at point guard, shooting guard, small forward. He's been sort of baby guard Lauri Markkanen for the Kings this year.
Yeah. And Jalen Williams, I mean, so another one of my takes is I think the Thunder are going to be a playoff team next year. If it was this year, it'd be really spicy, but I think it's going to be next year. But they just have such a fun team they have so much size at the 1, 2, and 3 between Shea, Giddey, and Jalen Williams. And all 3 of those guys, they probably won't all be all-stars, but I think all 3 have all-star potential.
I think all 3 will be all-stars, but just not in the same season.
There you go. Shea's going to be an all-star this year, possibly an all-star starter, although, well, he's not going to be an all-star starter, but it's possible he's deserving of being
an all-star. He's one of the 5 best players in the West this year, halfway through the season.
Yeah, but with those 3, and then I know you're not a huge Chet guy, but they've got their lineup numbers this year with those 3, Dort and Muscala, have been off the charts. So if you just swap out Muscala for Chet, you have to think that would be even more interesting. Honestly, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. I was trying to think of who the ideal 4-man would be for that team. I don't know. Paolo Banchero. I don't know if it's Dort, because he's sort of the guy, I guess, that would be in there right now based on the contract they just gave him. But I don't know who you would slide next to Shea, Giddey, J-Dub, and Chet. I guess you'd probably want someone kind of beefy next to Chet.
I think all 4 of those guys, Giddey's not a great outside shooter yet. But all 4 of those guys are so effective with the ball in their hands that I think you could get one of those dirty work 4s, like Jared
Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like Aaron Gordon's a more skilled scenario. I was thinking like Jared Vanderbilt, like
Oh
just like
yeah.
do some of the things that you don't want Chet doing 24/7, at least until he gets a little bit thicker.
Hmm.
But when those are your four, when you're starting a lineup with four guys that absurdly skilled, you just get a rebounder defender and
Yeah.
mix in there, maybe a lob finisher, someone who doesn't need to double digit shots on any given night.
Charles Oakley in a time machine.
I mean, yeah, the dream, like if those if those guys pan out, if those guys are who we think they are, then like your the four in that lineup just needs to be a Shane Battier, like just a veteran, reliable corner shooter,
Hmm.
to take some of the defensive stress off your
Yeah.
stars.
Yeah.
Because
And probably
I really believe that all four of those guys will have one All-Star appearance in their careers, which is rare to have.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I get everyone needs a PJ Tucker, but a PJ Tucker would be great there as well.
Am I am I kind of getting a little bit too excited about Jalen Williams? Like, do you think he's a 1+ time All-Star?
I mean, you're talking to the guy who had him sixth on his big board coming
Yeah.
into the season,
Okay,
and
so let me ask you this.
and his
Let me
weakness on my thing was athleticism, which seems to be his greatest strength.
Okay. So of Shea, Giddy, Jalen, Chet, if I told you one of those guys is never an All-Star, who would it be?
Probably Giddy, just because I don't trust the scoring.
Yeah.
I'd probably and I have to see Chet play. Like it's just impossible to know. And with his body, you never know. If he stays healthy, I'd probably say Shea. Well, Shea's gonna be an all-star this year, and then I think Chet
Yeah.
will be an all-star, and I think Jalen Williams is probably gonna be an all-star as well. Just I mean, he hasn't even gotten to flash some of just the visionary passing stuff that I mean, he flashes it. He hasn't had the chance to like really take the wheel a lot just because Shea's been so good and Giddy's good
Yeah.
on the ball too. But he'll flash it. Like he had this play against Miami where like someone threw just an errant pass into the middle of the paint, or maybe it was off a rebound, and he just like jumped up above everyone and then like one hand touch passed it out to Dort in the corner for a three. And that was just like insane. And he'll make these passes, in transition. Everything's on time or early. I have so much faith in that guy.
He's also so long that he finds himself in positions to dunk balls that I don't even think he realizes he's going to dunk.
Yeah.
Especially because he was a late growth spurt guy. Part of the reason he leads guards in dunks is just like a lot of layups turn into last second. Oh, I'll just put it in
Yeah.
because my hair is above the rim.
Yeah. And it's debatable whether he's a guard or not. I mean, he's 6'6", but still, I'll take the stat.
But he's yeah, and he has like sort of the same physical. He has the same height length as Shea. They're both
Yeah.
like 6'6" with 8'8" standing reaches. So like that's a power forward standing reach. These are guys that can dunk from under the rim without momentum.
Yeah, God, there's gonna be I can't wait to watch that team. Just how they choose to play. There's gonna be so much length, so much passing. They're gonna
What
be
happened
really
to
fun to watch.
Usman Jang? He was in that mix.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he was always going to
Is
be.
he playing in Sioux Falls or something?
I believe so. He was always going to be a project. I think he's a little ways away, but maybe he's that 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, shoot me one.
I don't even want to shoot one right back at you. I just have questions. I have questions.
Go for it.
Um, are you picking the Cavs to beat the Nets tomorrow in a 4-5 matchup? Those two teams played in the play-in last year, and sort of like how the Nets demolished the Celtics. I think they didn't have Jaylen Brown 2 years ago.
Yeah.
With Harden kind of beat the hell out of the Celtics. And then a year later, the Celtics looked so much more mature, so much more defensively stout.
So much less having Evan Fournier.
Yes, all of those things. And like, Rob Williams with like a newfound confidence and role in their defense. Like they're just hints that like that type of growth is coming for Cleveland. Like we're going to watch them against the Nets and it will just be a completely different power dynamic between these two teams. I'm with you. I still think just like KD is too good to pick the Cavs in that series. But I also, we've been talking a lot about the significance of the regular season. Like I don't want to disregard the games that the Cavs have played and
Yeah.
like just the talent they have on that roster.
Yeah. I think for the Cavs, getting into that top three is going to be really important because it's not a roster with a ton of playoff experience outside of Donovan Mitchell and I guess Kevin Love. But I mean, Kevin Love has a lot of experience, but he's less important. So I think they're going to want to try to ease their way into the playoffs with a first round matchup against a team like, the Knicks, who are good. But I think once they get into the playoffs, if you put a bigger guy on Jalen Brunson, although I guess the Cavs don't really have like a big guard to throw at him, but I guess they could throw a Coro or Lamar Stevens or something. But it's a lot easier to sort of get your playoff legs under you playing against a team like the Knicks than it is like, congratulations, you made the playoffs. Here's Brooklyn, or here's Joel Embiid, even if Harden kind of goes haywire. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm low on the Nets overall. Like another thing, which I was gonna say is I don't really buy Brooklyn as a legit title contender, just because I feel like if you have two rotation pieces and Simmons and Claxton, who are such liabilities when it comes to fouls and free throw shooting, and Simmons just overall, gravity on offense, he has like negative gravity. They both do, honestly, although Claxton can at least space vertically, but I don't really buy either of them as title contenders over Boston or Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like when in doubt, like if you told me there's one surprise team in the East that rises above the Celtics or the Bucks in the playoffs, like I just have to default to the Nets because
Yeah.
maybe Ben Simmons shot started at least getting to the line and missing. Or Claxton has elevated his game and KD's an MVP candidate and Kyrie, when he's playing basketball, is still really good.
Yeah.
So the ceiling for that Nets team is still hilariously high, just given everything that's happened. Like here we are,
Yeah.
and the Nets are a scary team to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But okay, one in the East, I'll give you a take.
Mhm.
I just don't care that the Raptors are 20 and 25. Like I still think that in a couple months they're going to be very significant in this year,
Yeah.
whether it's because they made some shocking blockbuster deal or because like they're back to 500 or a little bit better and suddenly they're just like a 2 or 3 seeds nightmare. They have the seventh, they're tied for the seventh best point differential with the Heat. The 3 teams above them in the play-in, or sorry, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Pacers. Yeah, the 3 teams ahead of them, 10, 9, and 8 are all negative point differentials. The Raptors are right above 0. It's been a disappointing year. Fred VanVleet's been missing a lot of shots. He's been bad from 2 for a while, but this year he's bad from 3. I still love Fred VanVleet. I can't quit that guy. He's still in his physical prime. I can't just suddenly believe that Nick Nurse isn't a great coach. Like
Yeah.
he had the large sample tells us he's a great coach. The offense is ugly. Scotty Barnes is not guarding the ball, and there are a lot of bad clips. But like I look at the teams above them in the standings, and I refuse to believe that they are just like it's a throwaway year for them.
Yeah. Well, Scotty Barnes is public enemy number 1 for me after how he got in Quentin Grimes' face. I
Yeah.
didn't like him talking to my boy like that. But I agree with you. Like I've been watching a lot of Knicks lately just because they've been playing really well. And they were coming off a win streak going against Toronto. And I was like, I feel like they're going to lose this one because Toronto, they're just tough to match up with. They always play them well. And then I thought, feels like they always play everyone well. And I don't really understand why they aren't better. Besides, I guess, the fact that no one on the team can really shoot right now. But I agree. I find it hard to believe that they're not going to be good. They have so much athleticism. I'm not super concerned about Scotty Barnes long term, although I think going into the year, I would have ranked him 3rd out of Mobley, Cade, and him. And I'd probably take him over Jalen Green just because I like his intangibles. But yeah, I'd agree. Anyway, I have a Western Conference matchup in a similar vein to the Cleveland-Brooklyn. Playoffs started today with health. Would you take the Nuggets or the Warriors?
Nuggets or Warriors? Oh no.
Mhm.
You can't just throw me right into that. I think I just don't want to. It feels like the people who say like LeBron's done. This is the end of LeBron. Like I need LeBron to prove to me that he's done before I can say the words out loud. Like
Yeah.
I can't say I don't want to pick the year the Warriors are get like buried by the next team. So I just because of the way the Warriors have been able to leverage the things that Jokic is not elite at against the Nuggets and isolate him, even though last year we saw it without Murray. Um, I just, I still believe, the Warriors closing five, starting five, whatever you want to call them, is still the best lineup in the league, in my opinion. And I think the stats this year back that up. And so I'd go with the Warriors. And it's not because I don't think a team can win with Jokic as the anchor of their defense. I think he's the best player in the league right now at this moment. Maybe I'd rather have Giannis for the defense in the playoffs. I don't know, but I'm going with the Warriors to be safe because we've seen them we've just seen them handle that matchup in the last few years now.
I think it's just a uniquely bad matchup for Denver. And I had in my notes, Denver is going to the finals if they can avoid playing Golden State. So they got to hope Golden State finishes as low in those standings as possible. But I think Denver I would pick them to beat anybody else in the West. I mean, they have the Clippers number. We've seen this time and time again. They even beat them without Jokic with Kawhi and PG playing, or maybe it was just Kawhi, but last weekend they smacked him without Jokic. And so I'd pick him over them, pick him over Dallas. I would pick them over Memphis. I'd probably pick them over New Orleans as well. So the Warriors are the one team, just with the way they're the one team that has that blistering shooting threat from the guard position, because Dame does that as well, but we've seen it in the past. The Blazers don't take advantage of Jokic in the same way that the Warriors do, just because there isn't the same like frenetic movement. And they're just, I mean, Dame and Steph are just different players, even though they both shoot a lot of threes. But the Warriors with Steph, and Poole also had an incredible series against the Nuggets last year with his ability to sort of wiggle off the dribble.
Yeah.
If the Nuggets can avoid them, I have them going to the finals, but I likewise would pick the Warriors over them.
It's just my cynical NBA opinion that like I love Bruce Brown and KCP. I think they've been upgrades for the Nuggets, but how much are they upgrades, in the conference finals? Like, when everything is sort of like everyone is sort of diluted and we whittle it down to like stars versus stars and like, Bruce Brown needs to make a three to keep the Nuggets in a game and at Chase Center. I feel like that's when those additions look less significant traditionally than they do in January. So those connective parts that they've added. And so like my cynical opinion is that matchup hasn't changed much, that it's still Jokic as an MVP level player against a better team.
Yeah, I agree.
We ran out of our Zoom time there. Max wishes that he said Denver should trade for Nasri. So just remember that one, world. I was going to ask you, where are we on the Pelicans, just so that I can shit on whatever you have to say. Let me be clear. A Spain pick and roll with CJ, Zion, and Brandon Ingram still sounds like one of the most terrifying actions like any team in the league can run right now.
With Trey Murphy spacing.
And Trey Murphy in the corner, and Alvarado ready to pickpocket the guy who inbounds, or the guy who receives the inbounds pass on the subsequent play. So the Pelicans on January 18th are 26-18. They are firmly in third place, 2 games ahead in the win column from Sacramento. And right now, all the talk is kind of that Denver, Memphis, and New Orleans are this top tier in the West, at least until Golden State figures their stuff out. What do you think about New Orleans?
I want to see what it looks like with Zion, Ingram, and CJ all together, just because we've like barely seen it, especially with Zion as the focal point, which I think is how it should be. because I mean, we saw even without Brandon Ingram in the lineup, they were first in the West until Zion went down with his hamstring. But I think I have no concerns about Zion as a playoff player. I think he's going to, I mean, teams are going to try to stop him in the same way they stopped Giannis in terms of building a wall. The Pelicans have enough shooting and off the ball juice between McCollum and Ingram, and then also Trey Murphy and a host of other shooters, that I think that wall is going to have to be stretched out a little bit more. And when Zion kicks it to other people, it won't be like Eric Bledsoe spotting up. When CJ McCollum gets it with like a collapsing defense, he'll be able to manipulate that a lot more. And same with Ingram. And I think that's the way that they should play. I do have some concerns because it's never been a super clean fit between Zion and Ingram in the past. I'm hoping that in the time that Ingram was out and watching how the team played with Zion and then the sort of satellites around him, that he'll sort of know when to kind of pick his spots, almost channeling like Kyrie playing with LeBron. Not that Zion's LeBron, but just sort of that sort of mentality of kind of picking his spots to score.
Yeah.
Just because Zion's so much more efficient than he is, and also just so much more, he's going to pick up fouls. He's also, I think, going to have an effect similar to Giannis over the course of a playoff series. Like when you have to play that guy 7 times or, maybe at least 4 times, that's just going to wear you down physically, mentally. Yeah. He's also an incredible passer. So I think he's going to be able to he's a very good passer. So he's going to be able to make the reads.
Thank you for the correction.
Yeah. He's going to, people overstate, but he's going to be able to make the reads out of the double teams and stuff.
Definitely. So, and he's very willing.
Yeah.
He's a super unselfish star.
Yeah. So offensively, I don't have many concerns about them. Defensively, the Zion JV front court can have some issues against, a guard like Ja. I think we'll give them some issues. I think the Memphis matchup isn't great for them, which is funny because in the past they've actually kind of dominated Memphis, but this year that seems to have switched. But yeah, I think realistically they'll probably lose in the second round, but I also think that
this is the year they take the step and win a series.
I think so, yeah. And I think Zion's going to be incredible in the playoffs, and he is good enough to win multiple series with him as your best player this year. I just hope this hamstring thing heals quickly because he's still one of my favorite players in the league to watch when he's healthy.
Yeah. I think the Pelicans have proven me wrong so far this year. They look really good. I still think the learning curve is really great for especially like young stars that don't shoot threes. Like there were a couple of years there where we started asking ourselves whether Giannis was a playoff player, like when Kawhi came back from, what was it, from 2-0? We all had a lot of questions for Kawhi. I did. Or for Giannis, and he proved us wrong. It just takes those playoff reps. I need to get to the line. I need to attack the rim and not settle because teams are going to be pushing me to do exactly what I don't want to do in the playoffs with more aggression than they do during the regular season. So Zion is their best player. And I wouldn't feel good betting on them to win more than a round, as you're saying, until they have like the arc that every other good team has, where we make it, we lose in the first round, but we're feisty, then we win a round. Memphis has been paying their dues in that way, and so I think we're still very early on this Pelicans journey.
Yeah. Now I think they can make the finals this year. I probably wouldn't pick it, but
I can't say that.
I think they can, and
it would need for me. It would need to be like Steph gets hurt, Jokic or Murray is out, because the Memphis. I know that they had a decent history against Memphis, but I can't pick a healthy New Orleans over a healthy Memphis this year. And it's hard for me to get there. I still don't believe that the Pelicans have the guards. And I feel like I don't want the ball to be in CJ McCollum's hands when the other team has the ball in Ja's hands. That just feels like such a great disparity.
Yeah.
But I guess, Zion's going to be the one running offense for them late in playoff games.
Right. And yeah, I have two more things on the Pelicans. First, I think that, while Giannis is far better than Zion on defense, I think Zion might be even more unstoppable than Giannis offensively, just because he never settles. Like you saying, like, when not to settle, and like he is never going to take a jump shot. He's taking every single one of his shots in the paint unless he's really feeling it, and he'll pop a three. And then also just with his speed and low center of gravity, and just, he's even bigger than Giannis, and he sort of exerts even more, pounds per square inch or whatever. It's just like impossible to stay in front of him. And he's so like jukey and shifty. I haven't seen anyone really who's able to stay in front of him one-on-one. Not that teams would be trying him one-on-one. But then the second part of that is I think the Pelicans do have 4 guys who can win you a playoff game. CJ's done it. Ingram's done it. I think, Valanciunas every once in a while has one of those like 25 and 20 games.
Okay.
Like,
it's a really loose definition of winning you a playoff game. I think
he can, he's a weapon. He's definitely a weapon.
Trey Murphy could hit 6 threes in a playoff game.
Okay. But he's a weapon. He can have stretches where he's like throwing the ball to Jonas with 6 seconds on the shot clock in the post is not a horrible source of offense.
Don't forget Herb too.
Yeah, don't forget Herb. Although I really wish he could shoot a little bit better. But
yeah, his shooting's come down to earth.
Yeah, I just really want to see them healthy because they're my favorite team to watch when Zion's playing.
Yep. All right. One 10-second take also that I'm just going to throw in here. It's a negative one, so I didn't want to start with it, but I'm just out on LaMelo. Like I don't care. I don't care if LaMelo averages 30, 10, and 10 the rest of the year. I'm just out. Yeah. Because a player that can that is as productive as LaMelo is just inevitably going to be paid too much. And will be given too much responsibility within his offense.
Yeah. It's so hard to sift through averages now and like tell who's a good player and who's a bad player. Cause like the Hornets and the Rockets are playing right now, and Jalen Green's got 40 points. Last I checked, who knows how many LaMelo has, but that basketball is just like almost just different basketball.
Yeah.
And like, a Bucks Sixers game or something like that. I also have a negative take, but unless you have something more to say on LaMelo.
No, yeah, just the way that you watch like Halliburton last year on the Kings, like chopping a team up on a night maybe Fox was out, and you're like, even though the Kings are not good at this juncture, like Halliburton looks like such a fun guy to play around. He's making guys better. He's like, throwing incredible pocket passes out of the pick and roll, just like playing like he's 10 years older than he is. I don't see that same maturity from LaMelo, who's putting up much more monster numbers than even Halliburton this year. But I don't LaMelo, the way that Zion is such a willing passer, I feel like LaMelo gets a lot of assists because he has the ball for like the vast majority of the possession. And he's a very gifted passer. His vision is nuts and he's got the size to pick guys out. But I think that he's thinking score first, and he's kind of thinking highlights first. Yeah. And I think that as young as he still is, I just worry that this is his personality, and it's incredibly fun to watch. And I want to see him live because he's so skilled, but I don't think that he is a winning star.
Yeah. He's a little Trey-ish, but Trey is probably more winning. I mean, he is more winning than he is. And then on the Trey note, one of my notes is, I don't think we talk enough about how much the teams at the top of the 2018 draft fucked up. Like, not just the Bagley pick. I feel
I'm bad with years. Just who is it? It's, the 2018. Our baby. Yeah,
Luka.
Okay, yes. This was the year that I had Shea at 6, just like you had Jalen Williams at 6. Yes. And I wish that I had the balls to put Shea even higher, but I didn't think Shea was this good.
Yeah, but like at the time, everyone was like, Luka's really good, but Aiden, he's like this big, like you got to take him. And well, not everyone. A lot of draft people were saying Luka's the clear number 1. Most of them, honestly. Like, how did 3 teams pass on him for like Aiden, who his regress this year. He might not ever make an all-star team unless, I guess, he could maybe be a Markkanen candidate down the line, but he looks worse this year than he has in the past. Bagley's not going to be in the NBA much longer. And Trey this year, it seems like people in Atlanta are kind of getting sick of him. Meanwhile, Luka's having one of the best individual seasons we've ever seen. And
I was sitting at my desk procrastinating work earlier today, thinking, why praying to the God of Jonathan Sharks? Why didn't I have the balls to put Jaren Jackson above Ayton? Because I liked Jaren Jackson more than Ayton.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is too ridiculous, Drew. Like, Jaren averaged like 10 points a game. He didn't rebound a ton at Michigan State. Like, Ayton just put up monster numbers. His body's crazy. He's very offensively skilled. Like, you're gonna plug him in and get 20 and 10. So don't be stupid here.
Yeah.
But this is just back to the stats thing. Ayton's counting stats are better than Jaren's to this point in their careers, but there's no doubt Jaren is a more desirable player. He might win Defensive Player of the Year this year, and you can plug him into pretty much any roster, and he'll have a really important role.
And I'd certainly bet on, if we're doing 0.5 All-Star games, I'd certainly bet on Jaren before I'd bet on Ayton.
Interesting, yeah.
Partially because he's going to be on a winning team, and those teams often tend to get to.
I mean, if Ayton's like on the Pacers or the Pistons in the next few years, like he might, he might just average 24 and 9 and make an All-Star game. But I definitely want Jaren more. If Jaren doesn't make an All-Star game, let me put it this way: if Jaren doesn't make one, it's because of the things that I think make him a better player. It's because he's exerting so much energy on defense. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. He can play off ball and be way more effective, just as a floor spacer. So yeah, that draft is super interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of the All-Star game, my last one is, I think when we last did our pod many eons ago, one of our questions was how many first-time All-Stars would there be? And at the end, I threw in the name of Jalen Brunson, just as a possibility. If the Knicks get an All-Star, which, it seems like they'll often just give an All-Star to teams that are in the top in the playoffs, even if that's not necessarily the best players in the conference. It should be Jalen Brunson.
Yep, 100%. But guess what, Max? It's not going to be, because the world is really dumb. And most people will just look at the stats on NewYorkKnicks.com and say, oh, Julius Randle is the best player on this team, and it's not close.
Well, Brunson, first of all, everyone was clowning that contract. I think he's underpaid. He might be like drastically underpaid for what he's done.
Did I not? I was with you there. I said underpaid at the time.
Yep.
Cap spike.
He's massively scaled up his three-point shooting. Everything that used to be coming off a screen as a pull-up 2 is now a pull-up 3, and he's shooting a high percentage from there. His percentages are up. His volume is up. On top of that, just in a city like New York, which loves point guard play, he's the best point guard the Knicks have had since, like, Mark Jackson. Are we going to go back that far? Like, there's no one else.
I mean, 2020 Derrick Rose, 2021 Derrick Rose.
I mean, Jalen Brunson's. I love 2021 Derrick Rose. Honestly, the Knicks could use 2021 Derrick Rose right now. They need some bench scoring, but
yeah,
like, you're going back, like, he's better than Raymond Felton. 2 weeks of Jeremy Lin, but Jalen Brunson's basically been doing the whole year what Jeremy Lin did for 2 weeks, and with less, like, of a heartthrob aspect. But it's probably the best point guard since Mark Jackson. I don't know if Mark Jackson ever made an All-Star team. I'm not great on my deep All-Star reserves.
I don't think he did. But Stan Van Gundy, who was it, Stan or his brother? Jeff just said that he was he's up there with the most gifted passers of all time. He was Van Gundy threw Mark Jackson into the conversation with Jokic, Magic, LeBron.
Yeah. The weird thing, I think the guy with the best vision in the Knicks starting lineup is Grimes.
Wow.
He'll make these incredible drop off passes off of drives. Grimes is another guy who I'm so happy the Knicks didn't trade him, even though I'd love to have Donovan Mitchell.
You think? Okay, Grimes is great, but is he? How scalable is he? Could he be a volume guy? Could he be an all-star?
All-star, I don't know. It's a little hard to because I do think he has off the dribble juice. He makes really quick decisions. When he gets it, he's like out of there. Sort of has that Maxey, I guess, is the only other guy I can kind of think of like this. He's not nearly as fast as Maxey, but Maxey just makes such quick decisions off the catch.
Yeah.
Grimes is like that. He catches, quick rip through, and like once a game, he'll make it a pass. Usually like a drop off to Mitch, or like sort of a look away, like under the arm to somebody, where I'm just like, whoa, I didn't really know he had that sort of playmaking ability. And now I kind of look for it and it's there. And I believe he grew up as a point guard prospect. So that makes some sense.
Yeah.
But of the Knicks young guys, he's definitely the one I'm highest on.
It's cool because Grimes had a man's body when he was 18, and he was one of the like top 5 or so guys out of his high school class.
Yeah.
And so when he disappointed a little bit at Kansas, I think people kind of panicked and pigeonholed him as an early bloomer. Like, he grew into his body early. That's why he dominated at the high school level, but he's not going to be a standout pro like he was a standout, teenager.
Yeah.
And he's re-entered this period of tremendous growth. He goes to Houston. He starts playing a little bit more point guard. Because he was just the most talented offensive player on his team. And I think he's showing some of the things now with the Knicks as they give him a little bit more time with the ball. He's showing some of the things that he did at Houston, like initiating offense, being more than just like a pump fake and dribble into a mid-range shot. Like he can do a lot. Yeah. And I think when I watch the Knicks, I'm really impressed by the way that he guards like legitimately good offensive players, the way he stops like really good drivers, not just like they put him up against Herb Jones and he doesn't have to do much in the corner. Like the Knicks have him guard some guys and he's really good.
He's guarding the best 1, 2, or 3 any given night. Like whoever the best perimeter guy is on their team, he's guarding them.
All right. Well, there are kind of 3 marketing candidates on the Knicks.
Yeah.
You have RJ, you have Grimes, and you have Quickly. And I'm only putting Quickly in there because when Brunson got hurt, Quickly had a pretty ridiculous 6 or 7 games. Do you think that one of these guys has some latent star potential? I feel like Grimes is playing well and Grimes is on an upward trend, but RJ and Quickly specifically, how optimistic are you about them going forward?
So, I mean, I don't think any of them are going to be stars. If we're saying star potential, it's probably RJ just because of the size and the package, but I feel more excited about Quickly and the way he's been playing than I do about RJ and the way he's been playing. And the funny thing with Quickly is I feel like the national perception of him and what he is as a player is kind of the opposite of what he actually is. Like people think of him as like a Bones Highland or Jordan Clarkson type of bench scorer, but that's not really what he is. He started that way, but honestly, the thing that annoys me, or the thing that like I just wish was better, is his shooting percentages are kind of low. His scoring isn't great, although it's been picking up recently, but his passing's been really good. His defense has gotten really good. Him and Grimes have been a huge part of the Knicks' turnaround on defense.
I think the Blazers have to trade Anthony Simons, but that's just me stressing about my team. And I don't think Chauncey Billups is a good coach, but I think his players love playing for him, which is kind of similar to the situation we were in with Terry Stotts. So I'm pretty bummed with that. Dame is not quite athletically what he once was, but he's kind of as productive as he's ever been. He just needs to stay healthy. He's kind of like Steph, like even if he isn't doesn't have quite as much burst, like he's just has some like veteran tricks. So he still gets by people. He still gets to the free throw line a lot. But I'm just
29.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, Dame also like this week, the last like 5 or so games, Dame's been particularly ridiculous. But it's just a really angsty time for Blazers fans because it feels like we're just stuck where we've been. And like, they could have a really good couple weeks and we're back at 7 or 6 and the conversation's a lot different. But the truth is it doesn't seem like Nurk and Anthony specifically are the right guys for the contracts that they have. And so that's why I was talking earlier about like, I just fantasize about getting guys in those places, getting like Okongwu instead of Nurk, or getting Devin Vassell instead of Anthony Simons, like just the type of a better match for Dame on both ends of the floor.
All right. End it with a little homer
I'm
corner.
sweating.
Ended with a little Homer corner, getting deep into the Knicks and Blazers stuff.
All
Brunyans.
right. Peace.